Every single human being on Earth today, no matter what color their skin is, can trace their family tree back to the same starting point in Africa. That means somewhere far back in your family tree, everyone reading this had the exact same skin color as everyone else on the planet. So how did we end up with such a huge range of skin tones today? And what actually happened along the way? Here's the thing nobody tells you about skin color. It was never really about race. It was about sunlight. Most people think skin color is just something random, like eye color or height. It's not random at all. Every single shade of human skin exists for a very specific, very practical reason, and that reason is the sun. This isn't a story about one group changing into another. It's a story about the same basic human body responding to wildly different amounts of sunlight in different parts of the world, and doing it more than once, in more than one place, completely independently. Here's what the evidence actually shows. Let's start with the basics. Your skin color comes from something called melanin. Melanin is a natural pigment, and the more of it you have, the darker your skin is. Every human being makes melanin. The difference between skin tones isn't about having it or not having it. It's about how much of it your body produces. Now, why would early humans need a lot of melanin in the first place? Because early humans lived in Africa, close to the equator, where sunlight is extremely strong, all year round. Strong sunlight brings a real problem. Ultraviolet light, the invisible part of sunlight that causes sunburn, can damage the body in serious ways over time, including damaging a nutrient in the blood called folate. Folate is essential for having healthy babies. Without enough of it, pregnancies can go seriously wrong. Dark skin, full of melanin, works like a natural, built-in sunscreen. It blocks a large amount of that harmful sunlight before it can cause damage. So in a place with intense year-round sun, having lots of melanin wasn't just useful. It was necessary for survival. Here's the twist. As some groups of early humans slowly moved out of Africa and traveled further north into places like Europe and Northern Asia, the sunlight around them changed dramatically. Weaker sun, shorter days, long grey winters. And that created a completely different problem. Human skin doesn't just block sunlight, it also uses sunlight for something useful. When sunlight hits your skin, your body uses it to make vitamin D, which you need for strong bones and a healthy immune system. In a place with weak, limited sunlight, dark skin became a disadvantage instead of a benefit. It was still blocking UV rays, but there wasn't much UV to spare in the first place. People with very dark skin in low sunlight regions struggled to make enough vitamin D, and that led to real health problems, like weak, deformed bones. So over many thousands of years, in these darker, colder regions, natural selection slowly favored people with less melanin. Lighter skin let in more of that limited sunlight, which meant more vitamin D, which meant healthier bones and a better chance of survival. This wasn't a decision anyone made. Nobody chose to be lighter or darker. It was simply that generation after generation, whichever skin tone worked best for the amount of sunlight in that particular place quietly became more common over time. Here's where the story gets genuinely surprising. Most people assume this was a slow, single, one-directional change. Dark skin slowly fading into light skin as humans move further from the equator, like a dial being turned down bit by bit. That is not what actually happened. Scientists studying ancient DNA have found something remarkable. Light skin in Europe and light skin in East Asia are actually caused by different genetic mutations, different changes in different genes that both happened to land on the same result. Lighter skin evolved independently more than once in different parts of the world. Think about that for a second. Two separate groups of humans, thousands of miles apart, with no contact with each other, both ended up solving the exact same sunlight problem using two completely different genetic solutions. Evolution basically found two different paths to the same finish line. And here's a detail that surprises almost everyone. Genetic evidence suggests that fully light skin in Europe is actually very recent, evolutionarily speaking. Some studies suggest many early Europeans, even thousands of years after first arriving from Africa, still had noticeably darker skin than most Europeans do today. The full switch to pale skin may have taken far longer and happened much more recently than most people assume. This pattern doesn't just show up once, it shows up again and again around the world, wherever humans ended up living. In Northern Europe, where winters are long, grey, and sunlight is genuinely weak for months at a time, populations evolved some of the lightest skin tones on the planet to squeeze out every bit of vitamin D they possibly could. In East Asia, a separate lighter skin adaptation evolved completely independently through different genes entirely, arriving at a similar result through its own separate path. Meanwhile, in places close to the equator, like parts of Africa, South Asia, and northern Australia, populations kept dark skin, or in some cases evolved it again from lighter-skinned ancestors, because that same intense year-round sun problem never went away. Here is a detail that genuinely surprises people. Aboriginal Australians have very dark skin, similar in some ways to some African populations. But their ancestors left Africa on a completely separate journey tens of thousands of years ago, traveling east through Asia rather than staying in Africa. Their dark skin isn't a leftover from Africa. It evolved again independently once their ancestors settled in a sun-drenched part of the world. That is the same basic pattern showing up over and over. Wherever there was intense year-round sun, dark skin kept getting selected for. Wherever there wasn't, lighter skin did. The location mattered far more than the specific starting population. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. For most of human history, this entire process was simply biology responding to sunlight. No hierarchy, no ranking, just different bodies adapting to different environments the exact same way body shape, height, and even lung capacity adapted to different climates and altitudes around the world. But in relatively recent history, some people took this completely natural biological variation and twisted it into something it was never meant to be. They built entire systems of discrimination and cruelty on top of a trait that only ever existed because of something as simple as how much sun hit a particular patch of the planet. Skin color has never had anything to do with intelligence, worth, or ability. It has only ever been about one thing: how much protection a body needed from the sun in the place its ancestors happened to live. Everything else that got built on top of that idea was added by people, not by biology. So why does any of this matter now? Because that same old evolutionary trade-off is still playing out in your life today, just with modern tools stepping in to help. People with very light skin, especially in places with strong sun, are now at a much higher risk of sunburn and skin damage, since their skin evolved for weak northern light, not blazing summer sun. That is why sunscreen exists, and honestly, why some people go from pale to lobster red in about 20 minutes flat, no matter how many times their friends warned them. People with darker skin, especially those now living far from the equator in places like Northern Europe or Canada, can sometimes struggle to get enough vitamin D naturally from sunlight, which is exactly why doctors often recommend vitamin D supplements in places with long grey winters. It's the same ancient trade-off, just now solved with a tiny pill instead of 10,000 years of evolution. Basically, humanity spent millennia slowly fine-tuning skin tone to match sunlight levels around the world, and now we've got people hopping on planes and moving countries faster than evolution could ever hope to keep up with. So why did some ancient humans end up with lighter skin and others stayed dark or became dark again? It was never really a story about one skin color turning into another. It was always a story about sunlight, about survival, and about the same clever, adaptable human body finding more than one way to solve the exact same problem in more than one place, completely independently. Every skin tone alive today is a living record of exactly how much sun someone's ancestors needed to survive, and how their bodies quietly solved that problem over thousands and thousands of years without anyone ever making a single conscious decision about it. Next time you put on sunscreen or take a vitamin D tablet in the middle of winter, remember, you're still playing out the exact same ancient trade-off your ancestors faced, just with slightly better tools than they had. If you enjoyed this one, subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments what you think we should dig into next.